Welcome back to Partickhill Station. So another little how-to tips and tricks. I downloaded the file from Kingsway models for the subway station. And you can get the download there, and then there's a whole series of instructions to follow. And here's a sort of simplified version, quite straightforward. And what I've done is I've used a pizza box, and I've begun the process of adhering the paper to the cardboard and then cutting out those areas that have been marked, cut out as shown here. I bought this scalpel off Amazon. It came from China, I believe. I'm not really sure how good it is, but I was able to cut these areas out, and I'll continue with that process. They gave like half a dozen or so blades in this little package, and as you can see, it's worked quite well up to now. I'm not really sure how often I should change the blade. In these instructions, the guy who prepared this suggested using a black mat board, I think he says. Not really sure if I'll do that. I'll see how well this card stands up. And of course, the usual, after folding the papers on, take a black marker and fill in all the edges. And to get some 3D effect, take the columns and reinforce them, make them thicker, and then put them on here. As you see, there's that finished example, and here's the basic entrance. And so, it really makes it look good. Anyway, I'm going to try and change the name here to something which would have been around Glasgow, and we'll move on from here. Anyway, so following the instructions, I've covered the windows with 3M clear tape, and that'll give it a little bit of effect. And in this particular case here, I've put on another level of card just to give it some depth, and I'll do the same with the columns and then move on from there. So as you can see, I've added in some additional layers here, but had problems cutting the openings for the windows as a result of the scalpel being blunt. It's obviously not the best steel that they've used to make these Chinese produced scalpel blades. Anyway, so now I've moved on to making the pillars. As you can see, it goes in there, and I've made it slightly narrower than what they suggested. I made it narrower as they suggested. And here is the brickwork for the column. So that way there'll be enough to wrap around the edges. and glue it in place. And then I can always touch it up with a black pen. It doesn't look that great, so you know, it's these things are always a sort of lesson learned. And what I should have done was, you know, before gluing, well, I'm not really sure what the best approach would have been for this. To cut out the paper first and all the openings, and then glue it to the card and then cut the card. I'm not really sure. Probably best, as the sort of rule of thumb, make sure you've got a sharp blade, because doing circular openings is challenging at best. As you can see, I've now got some of the columns on, and you know, I've used thicker card, and it certainly adds to the look. I can fix up this brickwork here, not a problem. And I'm just doing the last column here, and then we'll move on. So now the 4 columns are on. Now these are the side walls that go on. Now I've started putting the side walls on and used some small right angled support brackets to try and keep it in the correct position. I'm thinking I might not put the canopy on, and I'll try and find the font text for the underground in Glasgow, and I'll make a sort of banner of that and put it on the front. I've now fixed the cap plate at the top here. As you can see, now what I have to do is I have to fit those columns in here on either side of the entrance, and then I'll put a roof over the top here to stiffen that. I've constructed the interior of the subway station, and as recommended, I've made some skylights because otherwise it'd be pretty dark. Now if I drop the facade on, that's a nice little scene, so it's working out quite well. Just got a couple of things to do, bit of weathering, and I'm waiting on the floor for in there so that I can finish it off. But you can see the light coming down from the skylight there, and on that side too.